can you tell us a few words about yourself and about the tool you're going to show?
Yeah, so my name is Kevin Ko. I am a open source community engineer at Prefect. So my day-to-day job is maybe 80% helping our users adopt Prefect through our Slack channel. We have a very active community, and I am responsible for maintaining that. And then the other 20% of my job is like going to meetups, giving demos. So whenever there's an opportunity to speak, I'm there, like conferences. So I'm here to talk about Prefect, which is where I work. So Prefect is both a company and an open source tool. It the open source It's an open source tool for workflow orchestration. So you would use it when you build data pipelines that you want to stitch together a bunch of Python scripts, and you need to track the state of them, schedule them, monitor them. That's when you would use something like Prefect.
Like Airflow, right? I think everyone compares other workflow orchestration tools to Airflow.
Yeah, definitely. And the founder of Prefect was actually a very active Airflow contributor. I don't know if you know. So our founder, at one point had the third highest commits in Airflow, and you can think of Prefect as like a list of changes that he proposed that were rejected, and because they were rejected, he went to make another workflow orchestration, and that became tool, and that became Prefect.
So how often does it happen that Airflow they reject the commits? Like I heard it's very opinionated tool, right? And they try to stick to their principles, right?
So for that story specifically, it was a list of changes that would make an Airflow 2.0. But yes, in general, what you're talking about is whenever you have like a tool that's um, designed by committee, right? Is the term where like you have a lot of different people who want a lot of different things out of the tool, and everything is done by consensus and by voting, and the design of that tool now becomes like something that's half of this and half of this and half of this, and that's why we think Prefect has had the opportunity to become a very cohesive tool, because it's like driven by like Prefect the company. Yes, we do accept a lot of community contributed features. We are open to feedback, but we are the ones responsible for collecting that feedback and abstracting what we can take out of it, and then making the features that address that feedback, right? So it's a very, very different like philosophy of maintaining open source as well.
Yeah, I'd like to see the demo.
Yeah, for sure. I'll share my screen over here. I'm just getting my slides ready. 1 second. Okay. So okay. So yeah, welcome to an intro to workflow orchestration with Prefect. We're just gonna talk about a bit about why you'd use it, and then we're gonna give a quick demo on how to use Prefect, and future plans as well. So about me, I already introduced myself. I work for Prefect as an open source community engineer. Prior to Prefect, though, I was a data scientist for 4 years. So um, like I we Prefect is a tool primarily for data scientists. So the reason that they got the data scientist for my position was so that someone who can like relate to what the use cases are and help those people adopt Prefect. And outside the Prefect, I contribute to another open source project called Fugue, and I also run the Orlando Machine Learning Meetup. So we're not gonna go over all of this today. Probably 1, 2, and if there's time, we'll do 3. We'll just do like workflow orchestration, go through a simple problem, and then we'll see how we'll port that over to Prefect. So let's talk about workflow orchestration and why you'd use it. So let's say you have a machine learning pipeline, and the machine learning pipeline is combining a bunch of steps. You have a PostgreSQL database. You're getting some query, putting it out into a Parquet file. You're going to combine this with some data from an API. You're going to do some operations and then train a machine learning model. While you're training that model, you're going to persist some artifact. And maybe if the model is good enough, you'll put it into like a Flash server for production. And this is like a standard pipeline. Nothing too complicated. Like this is kind of where the industry is at. But you'll notice that in this pipeline, there are quite a lot of steps that are interdependent. And like if certain upstream steps fail, then the downstream steps will error out as well if you don't manage it right. So when you look at the possible points of failure, like a database can go down, an API can go down intermittently. Maybe the data comes in malformed, right? Maybe you're training a model that doesn't really converge. There's just so many ways that these pipelines can fail, both data engineering pipelines and data science pipelines, right? And as your pipelines start to get bigger and bigger, like you have these more of these interconnected steps that you need to run on some cadence. Maybe you need your processing data daily or weekly. The point is that you have these batch jobs that are interconnected, and now you need to be very mindful of how we can handle failure gracefully across these pipelines, right? And that's when you would use a tool like Prefect. So the thing is with maintaining these pipelines, what we find is that there's a lot of engineering effort spent on actually defending yourself against failure, right? So an API can go down. Maybe you can just code a simple retry mechanism, right? Maybe if your pipeline fails, you want to get notifications. You want to send yourself like an alert on Slack or an email, PagerDuty or something. Maybe if there's malformed data, you can have some kind of try except. You can handle that in some way. Maybe you want to have some timeouts on your like if your task is taking too long, maybe you want to just have some timeout. But what you'll find is that the more and more you kind of code yourself, add code towards these scenarios, the more you're actually spending time doing this defensive engineering. And that's what we call negative engineering, right? So the thing you set out to do in the first place, the thing like you making a machine learning model or getting this data out in the world, like that's what we call positive engineering, the thing that you really set out to do. And the reason Prefect was created was because, we often hear that data scientists spend 80-90% of their time cleaning the data or working on this like negative engineering component. So at Prefect, our mission is to eliminate this negative engineering so that you can focus on that positive engineering. And if you indeed spend 90% of the time on negative engineering, if we can just bring that down to 80% or 70%, then we can double or triple the amount of time that you can spend on doing the things that you set out to begin with. So that's now just to introduce Prefect a bit. So again, our company mission is to eliminate negative engineering. We have our GitHub repo now has 8,300 stars. The Slack community, which I'm a part of, is now close to 14,000 members. Very active community. It's a Python-based workflow orchestration tool designed for the modern data stack. And when we say designed for the modern data stack, we can handle, a lot of, we can scale out using Dask. We can handle a lot of kind of unique use cases with the building blocks that we provide compared to maybe something like Airflow that was built long ago. And I'll demo some of this today. And then right now, Prefect is in an interesting period because we had Prefect 1.0 and Prefect 2.0. And 2.0 right now is in technical preview, and I'm going to demo 2.0 today. And maybe a month from now or so, it's going to be off technical preview and into an actual beta. So right now, we're kind of in that migration period, and in that migration towards Prefect 2.0. So Prefect Orion is what we named Prefect 2.0. And I'll show this in a bit, but in general, what we wanted was a very dynamic, DAG-free workflow. So we actually moved away from the concept of a DAG. We found that, so for those not familiar, the DAG is the graph of the dependencies, and workflow orchestrations are normally tied to this DAG concept, Whereas in Prefect, what we did was we decided that the DAG was too constraining because it kind of enforces this rule that your build time DAG has to match, your runtime has to match whatever the build time was. But the data applications today are increasingly becoming complex, and there's a lot of cases where you need this runtime dynamicism. So because of that, we opted to go away from this DAG workflow in Prefect 2.0. And then we also wanted to provide a more Pythonic experience. So we're gonna just go through a simple problem, and then we'll talk about bringing it, what it looks like to bring it to Prefect. So for our
May I
problem,
ask something?
yeah,
I'm just
yeah, go
really
ahead.
curious, like, there is still DAG, right? But you kind of build it implicitly, right? Because you have this, you see what functions are executed, right? In the previous example, there was this get stars, right? And then you still have this DAG, but it's internal.
Yeah. So
Did I get it?
yeah, you are right that there is a DAG. If you use a task, there is still a DAG that's formed, but it's okay to break away from the DAG. Like it's okay to say, hey, this task resulted in this, and therefore we can choose this other code stream, right? And we have more dynamicism that way, right? So for our simple problem, we want to track Dogecoin prices, and we just want to get an alert if there's a dip. First, we'll just do this with a native Python, no prefect involved. And in like a lot of people are concerned with these 10% kind of dips, and like they want to use this opportunity to buy cryptocurrency. So what we're gonna do is just use native Python first. We have this format URL function. The important thing is that you're hitting this API. You take in a coin. Here we are getting Dogecoin, and then we just append a start time, end time, nothing special. And then we have this get data function, which uses this URL that above here, and then we pull the data in JSON after hitting the API, put that in a pandas data frame. And then we detect a dip. So this function is just a very naive way to do it. What we're just doing is we're getting the peak and then the bottom, and then doing some kind of like, hey, let's check what percent of the peak the bottom is, and then hey, if there's like a more than 10% change, we return true or false. This is just very naive, a very naive way to kind of measure if there was a big change. And then we'll talk about posting to Slack, which will be, which prefect will make easier, right? So once you have this script already like developed, if you don't use any workflow orchestration tool, what you're going to do is something like, hey, I need to run this script every 5 minutes now, just so that whenever there's a big change, I can get an alert, a Slack notification. So maybe I'll open like a AWS EC2 instance or some kind of VM. I'll put my script there. I'll put an infinite loop, do time.sleep 300 seconds every 5 minutes, and then I'll run all these functions. But the problem with this is, what happens if the API fails? What happens if you want to do an off schedule run? That becomes really hard because now you have to go back into your VM, edit the script, take out the while loop, do another run. What happens if you wanted to change a parameter? It's coupled to the code. You have to go in, you have to, or you have to build wrappers around this code that you already have so that you can change the coin that you want to track. In general, there's a lot of work, right? And these are the things that Prefect tries to solve and makes easier for you. So now we're going to bring it to Prefect. And to demo this, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to show my code editor. And I brought this into Prefect ahead of time. So this is our normal Python function. This is our normal Python function. The important thing is we added the task decorator. And this tells Prefect, hey, this is a task now. So a task is like a Python function. And when we talk about the whole script, we refer to that as a flow, right? So here we have a task that will be later inserted inside the flow. And when we talked about retries, right? Now in Prefect, it's very easy. You just use the task decorator. You specify your number of retries and the gap between those retries. And this is nice because it doesn't interfere with the logic of your application, right? It's something that Prefect handles on the orchestration level for you with very few lines of code. Same thing here, we just wrap as a task. And then sending a Slack message. This will be easier in the future. It just so happens we're in this migration period, but normally we have a task library. So we are just in the middle of porting the task. So I had to code this myself, but there will be a Slack task in the future. So you should be able to just invoke this in one line of code. And here is what we talked about earlier with, can you deviate away from the DAG, right? So now I'm putting everything in the flow and I'm giving my flow a name. I'm gonna take out this task runner first, right? So I have a flow and I'm taking, these are the parameters to my flow. One is called the coin and one is the threshold. I'm setting threshold to 0 so that I can get Slack alerts. But if I wanted, like, I can put some threshold like 10% if I wanted notifications if it exceeded like that 10%, but I'm gonna put 0 just for this demo. And then now we can put the get data task. This is detective task. And this line is kind of what highlights the difference between Prefect 1.0 and 2.0. Because in Prefect 1.0, everything inside this flow could only be a task. But now this if is the native Python if, right? So we can use that inside the flow. And what we can do is that this task it returns a future. So we call the .wait.result so that we materialize that future into a Python object. We compare it against true. And if it's true, we send this, a notification to Slack, right? So it's very Pythonic. You can work with Python objects. You can have dynamicism. So inside this flow loop, you can have lists, you can have a while loop, you can have your if-else conditionals, right? So it makes it, this is what I'm saying, that the runtime DAG can actually be different and deviate away from the registration DAG. And then of course, to check this function, to check the flow works, what we can do is we can just run it. So I'm gonna run this doge.py and call my flow. And now we get our, we know now that by wrapping it inside the flow and inside tasks, we get this additional logging. And now I got this notification 10:22 a.m. This is the one that Doge has a dip. I'm gonna show just a few more.
Yeah. I ask a few questions. So here, do you have Prefect running, or you don't need to have any server or anything? You just do Python doge.py, and then internally there's something happening that just executes the whole thing.
Yeah, that's actually a very good question, and the answer has changed between Prefect 1.0 and 2.0, right? So there's three things. You're right. There's three things I should highlight here in this flow block for people who are new. Number one is that the data here outside this task was passed to this task directly, and then this is not passed, but this highlights that number one, we can pass data between tasks. This is not a native feature of all workflow orchestration tools. Some of them require you to persist data in some location and then load it in the following task. I'm sorry, the Roomba turned on. 1 second. Sorry about that. Number two is that we implicitly determine the dependency. And now you can get this, we form the DAG here that, hey, there's this task is upstream of the downstream, and we know to run them in that specific order. And then the third thing that you mentioned just now is testing, right? This thing, is there a service, right? And actually, you'll see now that there is no service, but the state is being tracked under the hood. So what I'll do for you is I'll start my Orion server. Prefect Orion start.
And before you didn't have any server, right?
Yeah, I didn't have any server. That was native Python. But now we have this dashboard at this port. So I'm gonna open this. And actually, under the hood, we already tracked this. There should be, if we go to this flow run, I don't want the scheduled ones. This accomplished whale is the one that you'll see here, this accomplished whale. So I had no
Did you
service.
come up with this name yourself?
No, that's random. Prefect gives a random like adjective animal name, right, for every flow. So I had no service on, but Prefect, because I ran this, Prefect tracked that under the hood, right? And Prefect persisted that. So now I can actually go in here, and this run, I can go in the UI and I can see the graph of what happened in this radar plot. But the important thing is that even though there is no service, once you do that, run that flow, it's still being tracked and kept. The state of it is being kept in our SQLite database. So Prefect 2.0, you just install it in one go, and there are three components: the API, the SQLite database, and the UI. And even though your server is not on, you can still interact with the API with the database, right? So you can, even though you don't need the service, and this is all hosted locally, right? This is all just on my local machine, no cloud or anything. So
You closed it too early. I was going to ask you about this radar
oh no,
chart and how to read it.
no worries. I'll reopen it.
So I'm a bit confused. Like I don't know, maybe it's not a super common type of chart.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Did you have a specific question, or you just want me to
Like
explain?
how do you read it? Like
So
what information is here?
so these are the tasks that ran. So there's a difference between native Python code and tasks, right? Because tasks are actually tracked. The state of them of tasks are tracked by Prefect, and we monitor it because whenever you have a task, the task hits the API to update its state, but native Python code does not, right? So if I went back to my flow, and if my flow had some kind of like here, like while true, do this this portion inside this loop is not tracked because it's not a task. So the task is what makes it explicitly tracked, right? And then what is this line? This line is the data dependency, right? That, hey, the get data task ran and it passed some kind of data to this detect dip. So as you go, as your DAG goes like deeper and deeper, you're gonna see more circles go out, and the line is the data dependency. So what I can do uh, what I can do to highlight this is once I have this schedule run, I need to turn this off just because it's causing a lot of runs that clutter our dashboard. So what I'm gonna do is this Doge, I'm gonna change it instead to a list of coins, and then we can see how that gets reflected on the radar, right? So if I do this, again, I can use native Python code. So I can say, I'm going to change this to coins. And I'm going to say for coin and coins. And then I do this, right? And now this task is going to be called 3 times. Same with this. And then for each of them, if the result is true, we're going to send something in Slack. So I'm going to test this by calling this Doge function. I'm going to get 3 Slack notifications. Doge has a dip, BTC has a dip, Ethereum has a dip, right? And now, if I go to the UI, this is off right now. I need to spin up the service. So now, maybe I'll just refresh. So now, if I go here and I go to the latest flow run, this one, you're gonna see that we had get data 1 get data 2, and there should be a get data 3. So this one, this one, this one, they are all get data, right? And that's because of the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Doge. And then they each pass data to an outer like layer, right? So here's the detect dip. This one passed to this one passed to this, right? The send to Slack here, there's no lineage because I materialized the I materialized the object already. So here we lost that kind of lineage because it's not a task anymore. But it's like a trade-off if I, you know, to pass the lineage versus use working with a native Python object. So because I materialized it, now this guy is just in the most inner circle, right? Because it doesn't see a data dependency with the other guys, but I could connect it if I wanted to. So yeah, I think unless there's more questions, I think this is a good place to end the demo. There's just one thing I should call out, and I have the script ready, and once you have your flow ready, the thing to do would be to schedule and monitor it. So in that case, we have deployment specs. I can point to my file. I can name my deployment, and then I can say, hey, schedule this every minute, right? And now, if I register this and restart my service, what's going to happen is I'm going to get, as long as the server's on, I'm going to get this running every minute. And yeah, I think that's a good place to end the demo. I just have some announcements to make on the Prefect side before we get to questions. I'm gonna continue my slides here. So just two things. Number one is, again, we are in between this old prefect and new prefect. To check the new prefect, you can go to oriondocs.prefect.io. We also have a blog post announcing Orion, and we are hiring. This is a typo. This should be software. So we have 16 open positions right now, maybe 8 engineering positions. There's definitely something for everyone to check out. I would encourage looking at our job postings also. And with that, yeah, thank you. And I can take any questions now.
Yeah, so the first question is, how can we see this code? Can you commit it somewhere on GitHub from the demo? Or is it already there?
Yes, I will. I will commit it. It's very easy for me to. I already have a repo, and then I'll send you a link for sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, so if somebody wants to contribute to Prefect, how do they do this?
Yeah, we have we are actually very active in terms of community contributions. If you go to the Prefect repo, you can easily go to the issues and see if there's any good issues for you to take. And if you are new to open source, we also like chat with us and we'll also help you. Like even if it's something as small as like you want to fix a doc typo or something like, but you don't know where to start, like we can help you with that process. I'd say every month we have around 25 to 30 like community contributors, and the of course the range of contributions varies between like just doc fixes to like actual like maybe full features. Once in a while we'll get some those kinds of contributions also.
And I guess another answer would be to get hired to work at Prefect, right? That
For
would
sure.
also be a way to contribute.
For sure, we're hiring a lot. Definitely, like, I mean, reach out to me also if you want to chat about working at Prefect. Yeah.
So I'll need your contact information to put in the description of the video, and also the link to your hiring portal. Then maybe the last question I have: do you have any advice for anyone who is watching this?
Um. So advice can go, I guess, two ways. One with workflow orchestration, and two with working on open source. With working on workflow orchestration, I would say that right now, like Prefect is like there's a very generous free tier for both Prefect 2.0 and even the production ready 1.0. If I didn't demo 1.0 today, but if you wanted to use 1.0, we have 20,000 free task runs every month. And that's every month, right? So like even me, I work at Prefect. I use Prefect a lot. I don't even reach that. So you need to be doing something really heavy duty to get to start to have to pay. I'd say I'd encourage people to just try using it, even for your side projects. Like I am using Prefect personally for my side projects because you can schedule and monitor flows. So the bar, this is really designed to have a very low bar to get started with, and as long as you know Python, you should be able to work with Prefect. Number two, on working on open source, I would encourage anyone who's just interested to, number one, go to these issues, see if there's any low hanging fruit. Um, there's so many docs issues that can be addressed normally. So I would encourage people to go here and check it out and chat with us. Like I'm always on the Slack channel.
Okay. Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for doing the demo. Thanks for telling us about Prefect. And yeah, I think that would be it. Thanks everyone for watching this.
All right, thank you for having me, and I'll send you stuff for sure.
Yeah, see you soon.